Hi, it's James Harrison here to talk about the next daily Drumming Influences Revisited. Originally posted in 2012, today it is the great, legendary Roy Burns. A lot of people may know of Roy Burns through Aquarian as being one of the founders of the drumhead company there. But if you don't know the history of Roy Burns, it's worth going back and checking out. Roy was quite a famous jazz drummer and had become very, very well known as a leader, and he's played with everybody. I mean, when you look up the Buddy Riches and Louie Bellsons, look at Roy Burns, you'll see that he's played with many of those same type of people. Roy Burns became somewhat synonymous with Rogers for a long time in the Modern Drummer era, and Roy had a regular column in Modern Drummer. You know, I saw Roy in a clinic, and he was really quite famous for a lot of things, but one of them was his one-handed roll. He would do this thing, and it really was probably not considered a roll, but a lot of people called it a one-handed roll because it was very, very fast 16ths. And you can go back and find probably some of that kind of stuff on YouTube or whatnot. But tremendous drummer, very inspiring, but also a leader in the drumhead industry for a long time. And of course, he passed a few years ago, but he was always super kind, super gracious. I met Roy Burns, probably the first time I met him was at a clinic, but I would encounter him at the Percussive Art Society convention often. And I started using these Aquarian heads way back in the day, and I ended up becoming an Aquarian endorser for a while, and it started with a handshake with Roy. And at the time, I was really using quite a few heads. Most of the rock stuff I used the Response 2, and the classic clears on the bottoms of the toms, and then I used the high energy head or the New Orleans Special on most of the rock stuff. And then I would just use the basic texture coated snare head. But anyway, I had never had any problems with the Aquarian products or with Chris Brady or Roy Burns or anybody. It was all great. The reason I left Aquarian at one point was because I was working with the marching band so much, and Aquarian wasn't really, they had dabbled in the marching thing, but Roy had told me we can't put the R&D, the money into the R&D and give away the product to the drum corps like these other corps are doing. So they were going to just focus on the drum set stuff. So that's when I had tried to push some of the stuff onto the marching band, and it wasn't really working well. So I switched to Remo, so that Boise State could get the marching stuff. And of course, I grew up playing Remo. So I never had a problem with the Aquarian heads. It was really because of the marching stuff, and I went to Remo. And Remo's been great ever since, and great people there, great people in Aquarian. I never was an Evans artist. I don't have any problem with their heads either. But I had settled into certain heads growing up because of the availability of that, and that was Remo. And then when I did start to get into the Aquarian, I found some stuff I really liked and became an artist for them for about probably almost 10 years or so. So anyway, but needless to say, I would encounter Roy every PASIC or NAMM or something like that after that. He was always cool, very gracious, would send me stuff to try out and whatnot, or through Chris. But anyway, long story short, Roy was very innovative in a lot of things, and when the PV drums first came out, Roy was one of the early artists with them, and he called me up after I was doing some stuff with PV, and I was asking him about it. He did a tuning video on those, and he just said, be careful not to crank everything too tight because those inserts might pull out. But anyway, he was always really cool about giving you good advice, be it musical advice, exercises to work on, what works and what doesn't work when it comes to tuning and a lot of that stuff. And he was an educator from day one, but also a performer and a manufacturer. He was a little bit of everything. So the drumming influence for the day, Roy Burns, amazing player, amazing